Hey everyone, welcome to my latest Pokemon Masters video. As you can see from the title, I thought I'd try something a little bit different this time around, since the 1.5 year anniversary is right around the corner, and it might be quite fun to take a look at the version 2.5 meta that we're currently in, just to see where all the relevant units stand. Alright, so since this is a tier list video, let's start off with the obvious disclaimer that these are only my opinions that I'm about to present, and I'm not in any way, shape or form attempting to show them off as objective fact, nor do I claim to be any kind of expert at this game. There are definitely other YouTubers, or just like players in general out there, with both more skill and personal experience with a lot of these units than I do. And there's a fair amount of them, which I'll obviously also be ranking, that not only do I not have it 3 out of 5 to be able to see firsthand what they can do, but I actually don't have it at all in the first place, such as a bunch of seasonals, some Pokefairs, even some Spotlight Scout units. Like, obviously, I play this game a fair amount, but I still don't have all the units. For units like that, I'm going to be having to rely entirely on what I've either seen or heard from other people. But yeah, before I actually dissuade you from already clicking away and thinking my opinion isn't valid, I do think it's a good idea to take as many people's opinions into consideration as possible before coming to your own conclusions and forming your own tier list kind of in your head. It's also worth noting that, a tier list for Pokemon Masters is not really all that relevant in general, since it's not exactly what one might call a competitive game, and almost any stage in the game could be beaten with nigh any unit, to be honest, just depending on how you decide to support it. So I've also done my best to eliminate bias from this list, obviously. But everyone values things slightly differently. Pokemon, for example, to my knowledge, values survivability and consistency a little bit higher than I do, whereas I tend to give a bit more weight to things like the damage ceiling that a certain unit can reach, or the speed with which one can clear stage is another factor that I like to consider quite a lot as well. I'm also going to be obviously giving more weight to units that do particularly well in Master Mode, since it is the hardest content in the game at the moment. Obviously units that have strong niches, either in like full force battles or particularly Battle Villa, will also be mentioned and ranked accordingly, but primary bias is given to Battle Villa units. These are also not all the units in the game. I've basically just included all the units that have a grid, all the units that are 5-star, and units that I think have a place in the meta despite not having either or both of these previous factors. And I've also excluded Eggmons because while there are a lot of Eggmons that are definitely better than some of the units on this list, it's just like a rabbit hole I don't want to go down, because when you start ranking one Eggmon, it's like, why don't you rank the other? And there's just like so many different variations of each Eggmon that I just don't want to consider them for this video. Maybe an Eggmon tier list could be something that we do later on, not for this video. So with that all said and done, let's actually just get started. I've ranked these units in generational order. I've definitely not ranked them all by Pokedex number. I've done my best to rank them in the Pokedex order that I can remember off the top of my head. I think I know pretty well where units are at the beginning of each generation, at the end of the Pokedex in each generation, but for the ones in the middle, I don't have any idea. But yeah, that's just the ranking that I'm showing here off at the start. We've got 5 tiers. So we've got S tier, which is basically just like the absolute cream of the crop units. These are nothing's actually a must-have in this game, but if something were to be a must-have, it would be the units in the S tier. They'll make your life a lot easier. A tier units really aren't that far away from units in S tier, but they just have a couple of minor niggles that keep them out from the top, whereas B, it's units that are good, definitely super solid, very good in their niche, be that like support or sync nuke or something like that. C tier, we're starting to see units that have their fair share of downsides, but are definitely still reliable, whereas in D tier, it's units that I'd give pretty low priority to grid, honestly, and they're like probably good for beginners, but you're not going to get too much use out of them once you've just established a roster of the better units in the game. And finally, we've got has a valuable niche. These are mainly going to be the units I alluded to before, ones without sync grid or that aren't 5-star but still have their place in master mode. Alright then, so let's get started. Just move a couple of things around here so I can see. Alright, okay. Sorry about that. Alright, so starting off, we've got here we've got the Kanto trio. Without any shadow of a doubt, they all belong in S tier. Let's start off with Mega Venusaur. Mega Venusaur is honestly, it's just godlike. It has one of the highest damage output values in the game. And it can be one of the most efficient support units as well. Like, it just does a bit of everything. Like, you're going to be lowering defenses, which every single offensive unit in the game is going to appreciate. You're adding passive toxic damage on top of that, which is just going to be chipping away at them. It powers up your own sync move if you decide to EX her, and the sync move damage is actually, frankly, a bit ridiculous once you use EX, since not only does she have the innate buff from her sync move, which is when opponents are poisoned, but she also has an additional node on her grid, which raises the power of her sync move the lower the opponent's defense has been dropped, which she can do innately with her passive Sundering, I think it's called, yeah. And then once you stack on top the EX boost and possible eventual grassy terrain boost, this thing is going to be hit like an absolute nuke. I mean, like it already does, but so like her offensive options are, she's well and truly covered with offensive options. Frenzy Plant's a 4-gauge move that does obscene amounts of damage. She has move gauge recovery and I do believe additional healing on her sync grid. I'll just double check that actually. Sorry, that's Salazzle. I was looking at that before. Kind of interesting unit actually. She's got Speeding Sun and Healing Sun, so that both of these things really help her out in the Sun, but she definitely doesn't need Sun to be a powerhouse. And in addition, she's got Toxic Power 5, which is just a flat 50% boost to her damage output, HP Advantage 4, which is another 20%. And then, like, we've not even started talking about the potion and and the mega healing that she's got available to her. Honestly, like, 60% HP recovery with potions with an MPR3, that's a 40% chance to recover those potions, and then there's another 40% chance to have the mega healing activate. It's just the healing that the passive healing that she gives your team and the passive damage chipping away that she gives the enemy team is just makes her an unbelievable asset to basically any team that you could think of. And clearly belongs in S tier. Charizard, as you can probably tell from my video layout, is my favorite Pokemon, but I'm not ranking him in S tier because of that. I think everyone can agree that Charizard is one of the absolute top tier strikers in the game. Obscene damage output in the Sun. Yes, he doesn't have the best grid, but honestly, what he gets from the grid is all you need. He's already got enough power based off his off his Blast Burn. So you don't need any grid nodes to actually increase that damage. Basically, the grid I like to go for is just the Sync Nuke Charizard, obviously with EX, but this generally... what am I missing? What do I normally like? Oh yeah, that might be useful to actually get to Haymaker. Yeah, but this is the grid I generally go for. It's at 6-star EX, it has a higher damage output than even Hilda as a Sync Nuke, which a lot of people I think might underestimate. Solar Flare 5 is an extra 50% on top of the 50% that Sun gives you. Haymaker is a 100% boost to your sync move damage. So, like, I know he's a mega, but with all these multipliers that he can get, the sync move damage is also just obscene. Also EX available. A lot of people do have red EX'd and just use him as like their trump card whenever there's a difficult stage that needs clearing. You can just rely on red to do it. He has... one of his downsides is that the team comps to reach his match potential are actually fairly limiting, since you're relying on Rapidash, which is like, it offers basically nothing to a team apart from high speed to get to make sure that your move gauge doesn't go down too quickly, and obviously Sunny Day, which is its entire reason for being useful. And the other one is that in order to get Haymaker up, it's a bit awkward, since Red boosts his special attack and speed with his trainer move, but his attack only after he's already Mega'd, which is obviously after you've already synced once. So he can set his Haymaker up for you himself if he waits with his trainer move after he's Mega'd, but then honestly you're kind of missing the point with using Red in the first place, which is just like a quick and dirty stage clear. So it's best to pair him up with a unit that can quickly maximize his attack, even though he doesn't actually use it himself, since using Flare Blitz is suicidal on Red. Units that I like to pair with him are Hilbert, which obviously maxes his attack in 2 moves. Or now, more recently, I mean, like, I don't have Palatine's Dawn, but Palatine's Dawn is a phenomenal partner for Red. She maxes his attack, she gives him HP recovery, like, assuming you get refreshes on your trainer move, but like, why wouldn't you? Yeah, she also minimizes the opponent's special defense, which is phenomenal if you're dealing AoE damage with Red. Honestly, like, this, another thing that I think is a little bit underrated on Red is this skill he has, Propulsion 1. That's a 20% chance of reducing your sync move countdown, and I've had plenty of stages when I used them in Master Mode, and Red just completely managed to get 2 sync moves in before the opponent did. Obviously this was with a couple of resets, since you cannot rely on a 20% chance, but since this activates not only on your moves but also your trainer moves, you've got a pretty decent chance of getting quicker sync moves. And for the stages in Master Mode that just require you to kill them before they sync, Red is one of the top tier options for that purpose. And now we move on to what I actually consider to be the best unit in the game, Signasuit Blue and Blastoise. I mean, what can be said about it? He literally does it all. Blastoise, he over the course of the battle will maximize both offenses and defenses, obviously some more than others, and it's a little bit RNG based on how many hits he's taking and what offensive stats he maximizes, but you can guarantee that he'll quickly max out your defense. He maxes crit. Like, this guy is the ultimate enabler. He prevents your team from dying, and he lets a lot of units that either lack crit buffs or damage buffs reach their maximum potential. Not only that, but he is a pretty heavy hitter under rain. He's got a very powerful, despite his low special attack stat, he's got Hydro Cannon, which together with the Rain Boost and Raging Rain does obscene amounts of damage, comparable, or I think actually even supersedes Dragonite's Hyper Beam in terms of raw damage output. Like, obviously he's mainly still used as a support on a Rain team with May, but he's a support that does definitely not insignificant amounts of damage. Right, so then moving on, we have Pidgeot. Pidgeot, I do believe, is firmly ranked in A tier. This guy is, honestly, he's just superb. Grid, I think, is a little bit lacking, but he definitely has what he needs. He's got 2 refreshes on his trainer move, which lets him, if you're like not stupidly unlucky, lets him maximize his crit, lets him maximize his accuracy, which he needs for his multiplier and brutal clarity, which is another 30% on his hurricanes. He has really, really good damage output, but not only that, he's like, his special attack is off the charts, but he also has pretty good defenses for a striker. His speed is also way up there. He can get an additional 50% on his hurricanes if the opponent is flinching, which I think is like, it's a little bit hard to achieve, but with the recent buff to aggravation and with the recent buff to aggravation, that's quite a bit easier to achieve. Swanna is also a really nice partner for him, and she can flinch the opponent with a lot of gusts. Otherwise, you can just run any other flincher. There are some stages in the game that, or like, for example, we just recently got another flying striker, Yveltal, which is a very, very good chance of flinching the opponent and has nice team skills together with Blue and Pidgeot. He's not A tier because he doesn't actually reach that upper limit of damage output that units that benefit from weather or terrain can reach, and he's quite reliant on boosting his accuracy, which is a bit of a waste of turns in my opinion, since after a certain point you no longer need more accuracy, but in order to get his multiplier and brutal clarity, he obviously has to go to the max. Although Lily's actually a really nice partner for quickly just raising his accuracy. His EX is a little bit lacking. While he does have a lot of sync nuke nodes on his grid, he doesn't have any sync nuke multipliers, and they're frankly just better flying units if you want to deal sync nuke damage. But overall, he's a phenomenal unit, and definitely deserves A tier, but we recently had a unit that does out-damage him in his niche, but not so much to the point that there would be a tier difference between them. Alright, so moving on, we have Alolan Persian. Alolan Persian we're going to leave right here in this bracket, and has a valuable niche. Honestly, he's actually like objectively not that great, but what he does do is enable Halloween Hilbert quite a lot, just by the sheer virtue of Screech. And Screech lowers your opponent's defense by 2 stages, which is really, really nice for, I think Halloween Hilbert is the only unit currently in the game to have insult to injury, but that's a really nice multiplier to have, since you already want your opponent's defenses lowered for maximum damage output, and since Halloween Hilbert both gets theme skills from Alolan Persian as well as the insult to injury boost, basically this unit is a Halloween Hilbert enabler. There's not much other point in using him otherwise. Eevee was kind of difficult to rank, but I unfortunately ended up placing her in C tier, and here's why. She just has so much competition now. We recently got Xerneas, who's going to take over Eevee's role in a team like 90% of times now. We've got Signature Blue that boosts the damage output of units and their defenses by so much. And while Eevee boosts everything, but you either want a unit that boosts everything better than Eevee does, or you want a unit that boosts only relevant stats for your team. And Eevee's Omni Boost thing is a bit of a jack of all trades for master of none. There's generally always going to be a better unit to do the job that Eevee is required to do. Furthermore, she's got a pretty bad trainer move. I think it only raises attack and charges move gauges or something like that, which like with the advent of grids and move gauge refresh on them, move gauge gain isn't really that great. Like move gauge acceleration is really valuable, but just like pure move gauge gain, it's not really that big of a deal anymore. In addition, like she's got basically no offensive damage output. I mean, Iron Tail can be used, but honestly, like if you're using Iron Tail, you're still not doing much damage. She definitely has amazing potential with the grid, which we unfortunately don't have yet, but who knows, with the next beta mine maybe Eevee will get a grid, and that would definitely see her skyrocket in the tiers, since if she gets support EX as well, support EX unlocked, that would definitely help her increase the damage output of units. Potion is definitely nice to have, but a non-refreshable only 40% potion is kind of like you're generally going to be having to use it on Eevee herself, not her teammates, and with more and more units getting access to HP recovery like Mega Healing or X Regen All or Xerneas's Omni Heal, Eevee's potion applicability is starting to look a little bit dated, to be honest. Alright, now moving on, we have a Lowland Sandslash who is unequivocally also an S tier. Like, this thing is insane. It's just insane. A Lowland Sandslash can carry an entire team archetype on its lonesome, and he doesn't even have EX unlocked. Like, he's already broken at 1 out of 5. Like, a lot of people only have him at 1 out of 5. But he still easily clears any Ice Week stage that you could possibly ask for. He's got an inbuilt 50% multiplier when it's hailing, so you don't need to pick that up on a grid. He's got sync nuke options on his grid, either when the opponent's flinching or freezing. You can't have both of those things active at the same time, which is an interesting game quirk, but there are plenty of units that you can pair with him that either give flinch or freeze, and you can choose to either specialize in one of them and just have him hope to get either flinch or freeze and get that sync nuke option. Once his EX comes around, which will presumably be this summer, like he's he's absolutely busted, in my opinion. He's kind of similar to normal Steven, except that he has more power with a bit less survivability, but like with the partners that he pairs with, his survivability is fantastic. He gets Healing Hail, he gets an additional heal off Glalie. He gets, you can pair him with another, like, I know I'm repeating myself, but like, he's got double move gauge refresh on both of his attacking moves, although I do think Icicle Crash is the better one to go for, since that opens up the option of Harry, and going Icicle Spear is a bit of an opportunity cost. While yes, it's low gauges, ice teams don't really seem to struggle with gauges too much in my experience, and the flinch is basically just freeze, except easier to achieve. And at that point, why not just go for the higher base power move and Icicle Crash? Yeah, so like he's pretty bulky for a striker. He's not that fast, but Gauge definitely also isn't, like as I said, Gauge isn't really an issue for Hail teams, and what's to say, he's just a top tier physical striker. Alright, moving on, speaking about units that are a bit dated, Pikachu ends up in, let's go, Pikachu and Eevee. Ends up in the same tier as Eevee in my opinion. He's still good, but there are just so many more units that you'd rather use over him at this point. Battle Villa, we're getting so many powerful units, and units that used to shine in Battle Villa, like Pikachu, are starting to become a little bit left in the dust. Why would you use a frail striker to be your team healer if you can use a bulky support to be your team healer? Like, for example, Mega Venusaur or Xerneas or Swanna. Oh, don't even get me started on Swanna. With how much he outclasses him, but he has a pretty cool damage dealing grid, like with his what's it called, power reserves 9, and like I think there's another another big power reserves node on there. But when you're working off a 2 gauge move, you kind of need everything to fall into place. Like, you're going to need Pikachu to be targeted, have him at low HP. You're going to need Electric Terrain up, and sorry, I don't know what that was. Okay, yeah, just got a message. Where was I? Okay, Pikachu. Yeah, to use him as a striker, you need too many things to fall into place, and there's just so much better electric strikers out there already, and Pikachu just doesn't really. He hits high numbers, but the difficulty with which you reach those numbers doesn't make him that worth using, in my opinion. And while yes, his heals are nice, and he has that nice 1 gauge spam that can paralyze, there's just a better unit for that job, like Rotom. Yeah, like, definitely not bad, but he's definitely not the top dog he once was. Rapidash we're going to also leave in this tier with Alolan Persian. I've already talked about Rapidash a bit when talking about Charizard, but Rapidash it enables Sun teams that want to Sync Nuke, which is a very big niche from that makes it different from Ho-Oh and Meganium, because the Sun would generally end before your next Sync move, and so both of those don't enable Sync Nuking under Sun, whereas Rapidash does, and is thus a fantastic unit to pair with units that have Solar Flare 5. But yeah, I can't really rank it since it's only used on certain teams, but since it does enable these teams, it definitely has a place on this tier list. Alolan Raichu I would put in C tier along with Pikachu. He's actually fine. He's not bad at all, but he just faces super stiff competition, and yeah, he doesn't have any good single target damage other than his Sync move. He doesn't have his EX unlocked yet. That will make him quite a bit better, in my opinion. He does benefit from the fact that Electric Terrain is a thing, and that really helps boost his damage output. But yeah, he can't buff his own crit, and yeah, you obviously already have a slot that you need to use Volkner with, and there are no other electric types that boosts crit rate apart from Rotom, but that only gives semi-reliable crit at best. And yeah, he's honestly fine. If you need to clear an electric weak stage and this is your only option, you're still set. That's fine. But he just doesn't really have that power, I think, at least, to get him up there. But yeah, he does have a nice Sync Nuke with Inertia, and he's easy on the gauges. He paralyzes the enemy team with Discharge, but without lacking with a unit that he has that nice balance between a lot of single target damage with his Sync move and spread out damage with his Discharge. But other than that, I don't know. He's good but not great, in my opinion. Victory Bell, another unit we're going to leave down here. Basically, sleep is broken in this game, and if you time your sleep well, Victory Bell is pretty good at keeping your opponent unable to act. Right, so Starmie, moving on to Starmie, put him in A tier. I was actually I had Starmie at S tier for a little bit, but then I just realized it's super, super good, but the competition that it has from other units is just too fierce for it to be an S tier. Don't get me wrong, Starmie is absolutely phenomenal. Be that as a water support, a special defense buffer, a Sync Nuke, or a water striker. But in each of these roles, it is starting to look a little bit dated as well. For Sync Nuke, you can't get around the fact that May was released in the game, and if you have May, you're obviously sync nuking for a lot more damage. As a water striker, we also have May, but we also have like stuff like Suit Sharpedo and not Suit Sharpedo, Suit Grimsley, and for a special defense buffer, we have like obviously Xerneas is the biggest. There he is down there. Is the biggest competition for Starmie, and as an evasion buffer, we have Lilybee. However, like in each of these roles, Starmie definitely also has things that set it apart from the others, especially when it comes to support, like passive heals, evasion. It's like Starmie can do so many things, and it does so many things super well, but in each of the things it does, there is one unit that does it a little bit better than Starmie itself. And therefore I think she just slides out of S tier, but her damage output is still phenomenal. And her supportive capabilities are great. Like Xerneas can only boost maximize special defense after a sync. If you need to survive something earlier than that, before you get to your sync move, Starmie's refreshable special defense all is an extremely valuable asset. Starmie was one of the first units in the game. Obviously everyone has access to it. We've got plenty of support candies. I'm sure loads of people already know what Starmie does. But yeah, just as recently we've had some units that would often be preferable to having Starmie when you need Starmie for a certain specific niche. But as an overall package, still definitely top of A tier. By the way, these aren't in any kind of order. The Pokemon within the tiers aren't in any kind of order. It's obviously based off generation. Weezing, also going to leave in the tier of has a valuable niche. Weezing is super nice for Toxic Stall teams in Master Mode. He's actually fairly tanky. He can boost both defense, special defense, and heal himself. Pair that with the unit with Venom Drench, and you're kind of good to go, honestly. It's a shame that he doesn't badly poison, which means that the Toxic Stalling takes a little bit longer, but the sheer fact that it's AoE and you don't need to rely on like something like Poison Fang is super nice. Like, you're not really going to use him if you already have Signasuit Leaf, but if you need Signasuit Leaf for a battle that isn't a stall battle, then Weezing is honestly fine. And it's also really quite nice at enabling toxic power for a lot of units, since having obviously poison on the whole lineup is really nice. Okay, moving on. Jigglypuff is like, this is a unit I don't have, so I'm only relying on based off what others can see and pure Theorymon. But I honestly would put Jigglypuff in A tier. Like, an argument could definitely be made for B, but honestly, you know what? No, I think I would prefer to put her in B tier. It's hard to decide between the two of these. Let's put her in B tier for now, and then see what it ends up like. I think she can go up to A tier once her EX is released in the summer, but without her EX, I do think B tier actually in hindsight might be a little bit more applicable. Jigglypuff is a fantastic fairy striker. We recently got a lot of competition for it with the Palatine's units, but Jigglypuff can, like, you automatically already want to pair her with Serena, which already leads to a fantastic team comp, since a lot of her damage output comes from Good Nightmare. She is unfortunately a mixed striker, which means that you kind of want to pair her with a unit that can raise both attack and special attack for her. Like, she can do it herself, but it just takes a bit of time to get Mad Strength and Mind Swell rolling. But fortunately, we have Palatine's Dawn, which not only gives tech theme skills to Jigglypuff, but also maximizes Jigglypuff's attacking stats. And since Jigglypuff is there hit plus anyway, she can maximize her crit. There's no problem at all. And like, her sync move has a pretty nice effect of leaving the opponent asleep after you hit them with it. And I'm just thinking that if she gets her EX in the summer, being able to, assuming you don't wipe out the enemy row already after Jigglypuff's EX, you can put them all to sleep after using your sync move, which would be like the game's second AoE sleep option, and well, obviously not as useful as Serena's, since you can use that anytime and not only when you sync. That is something to bear in mind. And other than that, Jigglypuff has pretty nice offensive stats herself. Like, where are we here? Jigglypuff, there we go. Stats and moves. Yeah, I mean, take a look at that. Like 400 attack and 360 special attack. That is nothing to scoff at. And like, if you consider what those look like with the EX, like, not bad. Like, her speed is kind of atrocious, honestly. Let's keep it real. But what does this do? Yeah, okay. But you can easily just provide her with move gauge support or a speed buffer, and like Good Nightmare 5, Rude Awakening 5, 4 sync. Like, this is going to be a powerful sync move. I would stay away from Dazzling Gleam, to be honest. Like, despite Crit Strike 3, you want to. I think you want to be using Play Rough. The single target damage is too good to pass up. Like stuff like here on a roll 4. That's with the new honor roll mechanics that Runner found. That's just probably a nigh guaranteed chance to lower the opponent's attack, which will make her in turn bulkier. Yeah, honestly, I think she's a fantastic fairy unit that easily holds her own. That can easily hold her own with the other two fairy techs that we just recently got. I don't know whether to put her in A rank or not. I'll leave her in B, but I think once she gets EX, she is definitely an A rank. Gengar is here for the exact same reasons as Victory Bell. Alright, moving on. We have another cute pink puff in B rank. That would be Clefairy. So Clefairy is interesting. She's a support. She has a fantastic upon sync passive, which means that she heals her entire team by, I do believe it's 20%. And she, unfortunately, like, she maximizes offensive stats, but she's kind of outclassed by that with Palatine's Dawn, in my opinion. Since Palatine's Dawn just has so many other debuff options and team support heals that Clefairy doesn't. Clefairy is a really nice unit to EX support, but the fact that she doesn't give continued crit, but only a one-time crit, it does make her a nice option for sync nukes, where in team comps wherein your sync nuke is basically your main form of damage. But one-time crit is inevitably inferior to Dire Hit Plus all users. And she does raise accuracy, which is really nice for a lot of units that rely on Brutal Clarity for their damage buff. But like, generally you only need, or obviously not only Brutal Clarity, but have low accuracy moves. But it's not that big a deal, since a lot of units that have Brutal Clarity can raise their own accuracies, like Pidgeot. Or she doesn't need to, like, she has the Catalytic Cure on X accuracy all, which is pretty nice, but that also, like, but you can only use it, I believe, 3 times, since X accuracy all won't trigger anymore after your accuracy has been maxed. And that means that you also can't, like, spam it, since you obviously want to get the most out of it by, like, timing your X accuracy all moves after you've been damaged. But that does give her a semi-reliable self-heal, but with so many units now being able to heal units other than themselves, it already is starting to look a little bit dated. But she also has a really nice offensive option. If you don't have any other offensive fairies, she can really lay on the hurt with Super Duper Effective 2 and Brutal Clarity. And those are 50% multipliers, but like, in the end, why are you really going to use that? And everyone now has Xerneas that already has the innate 50% power boost to fairy type moves without needing to specifically grid for them. And so that leaves, like, Xerneas has also kind of left Clefairy a little bit in its shadow. But still overall super solid unit. Nice to have, but I like side by side. I think Jigglylyra is quite a bit better than Clefairy is at the moment. And Electrode we're also leaving down here. He is very, like, I think it was only like kind of recently discovered, but he's a very, very nice partner for Volcarona. Due to the fact that he sharply lowers the opponent's special attack. He's the only unit in the game that can do that at the moment, and is thus a really nice option to pair with Pokemon that rely on Overpower to boost their damage. Right, moving on, we have Vileplume. Vileplume. Where did I put Vileplume? I put it in C tier. Although, looking at it now, it might honestly be more deserving of B. This is one that I have no real strict, no real opinion on whether it should be B or C, but when I'm undecided like this, I prefer to just be a little bit conservative and rank it lower. Vileplume is a really nice grass type tech. The problem is generally, I think, just freeing up a move slot for it. Like, if you want a grass type tech tank on a team, I think if you have access to Venusaur, it's better to go for Venusaur than Vileplume. But Vileplume definitely has her own niches. She has a lot of energy ball on a roll nodes, which make it nigh guaranteed to lower the opponent's special defense. But like, Venusaur has that too. Venusaur has a 50% chance to lower the opponent's special defense, in addition to poisoning. Vileplume has Healing Sun, which I do believe is actually Healing Sun 2 and not Healing Sun 1, but let's just double check that. Healing Sun 2, that is really nice. Like, whenever Vileplume uses a move, she can heal a very good amount of HP back. Sorry, I thought I was being called there. So, like, a fantastic free-to-play option if you don't like obviously, like, while Mega Venusaur is a slightly better tank, and this doesn't really justify the rank disparity between the two of them, but it's Mega Venusaur's other options that cause this like, not just defensive options but offensive options that cause this disparity. Like, C tier isn't bad. C tier units are still good, definitely still good. She has Stun Spore, very, very nice. It won't miss because of her Piercing Gaze, but it only has a small chance to miss anyway. But it's just power creep, honestly. We've got the Whimsicott, which has the AoE Stun Spore, which is just straight up better. You just save 2 more turns by using an AoE Stun Spore. And like, she can maximize her defense. She's already got fantastic special defense, and she also has X special defense to raise that even further, so she can really tank a bunch of hits for grass type teams. But unfortunately, she has so much competition in stuff like Torterra and Mega Venusaur and Meganium. There's just it's a bit tough to find a team where I think she's the ideal option, but of course, if you don't have the unit, that would be better than Vileplume. Vileplume is a fantastic pickup. Alright, Jugong I'm also going to put in C tier. A lot of free-to-play units are ending up in C tier, it seems. Jugong is, like, I think Jugong is actually a little bit underrated, but it just faces such stiff competition from both Mew and what's it called, the cockroach, Pheromosa, as an AoE ice type damage dealer, that it can't really compete with either of them. However, Jugong does have, like, does have is super nice because it gives ice type theme skills to Alolan Sandslash. Like I generally would use a neutral damage dealer if I want to clear an ice type weak stage rather than Dewgong, since it kind of really needs either Hail to get invigorating Hail up, but what if it does? It's a fantastic backup striker with Sandslash, or it needs to rely on the freeze gimmick with Ice Beam to deal good amounts of damage, but Ice Beam isn't that powerful of a move, so you've got like a massive multiplier off of low base, and that damage can end up being a little bit more disappointing than one might initially hope for, and plus there's the whole luck factor involved with it as well. It raises its special attack and speed and special defense. No, does it raise special defense? I think it raises special attack and speed. It raises its own crit, but it can't max either of them unless you go for refresh nodes on the grid. So you're going to need to have another support to top up those the crit and special attack. But yeah, basically, while Alolan Sandslash deals fantastic single target damage, Dewgong not only gives him the theme skills, like they both benefit from Striker Ice theme skills to raise their attack by a very large amount, but deals with sides really nicely. The Icy Wind is a powerful move. It's quite a powerful AoE move, and it has the side effect of guaranteed lowering the opponent's speed, which is it's a really nice thing to have. Yeah, but basically Dewgong's stats are lackluster, and that's putting it nicely. It has really low special attack, it has a terribly low defense, like physical sync moves are going to lay a world of hurt on poor Dewgong. But yeah, it does deal pretty decent damage. Being an ice type, it's mainly viable because of the team synergy between it and Alolan Sandslash. But if you have a maxed out Luzamine or Mew, those two generally are better choices if you want an AoE damage dealer, ice type damage dealer. Alright, moving on, Onyx. Surprise, surprise, another free-to-play here ends up in C tier. Onyx is actually a little bit underlooked, in my opinion. It does really good rock-type sync move damage. However, Olivia is a thing, and she has been available just as long as Onyx has, so a lot of people already have her at multiple dupes. Yes, it's a tech unit, so it deals really nice damage on the Sync Nuke, plus it has Haymaker for an additional multiplier, but it does not have EX unlocked yet. I think once it gets its EX unlocked, it might overtake Olivia in single target damage dealing Sync move, but offensive Onyx deals very, very little damage outside of actually syncing, whereas Olivia, while Stone Age isn't really the greatest, it still does quite a bit more than either Rock Throw or Rock Tomb. Onyx does, however, have a defensive niche that vastly separates it from Olivia. He buffs his attack and defense quite well, and he also has Potion, as well as Potion Master Healer 2. So Master Healer 2 is unfortunate, but Potion MP Refresh 2 is unfortunate, but Master Healer 2 is very nice. So he can give a rock type team quite a bit of longevity. But yeah, basically they're better sync nukes out there. He's quite nice on a sand team, because generally a sand team is going to consist of Palossand, Garchomp, and a free slot, since Palossand already gives Garchomp whatever he needs. And it's quite nice to have a tank on that team build that also doubles as a damage dealer. So while Onyx doesn't actually get anything from Sand himself, the ability to support the team defensively and also provide a powerful sync move option, which, like Garchomp, has many things going for it, but a powerful sync move unfortunately isn't one of them. But yeah, Onyx is a rock solid, no pun intended, unit, but just faces competition from units other than him that perform his roles better than him. Units with better MP refresh, units that like buff the entire team's defense instead of only Onyx's defense, units that do more damage between sync moves than Onyx. But yeah, perfectly fine. Alakazam is without a shadow of a doubt also an S tier unit. It does everything that you want from a unit that specializes in buffing special strikers. It buffs crit, maximizes crit actually. It can maximize special attack on any unit because of 2 times +3. And it has a pretty decent refresh on that, so you can then you can use Sixth Sense as not only a special attack buffing option, but also an accuracy and healing option. It at 3 out of 5 can maximize a team's speed with Pep Rally on Reflect, and I think everyone knows what Alakazam does. Like, the support it gives to special strikers is nigh unparalleled, and there are the Signature Blue is often compared to Alakazam, I feel, since Alakazam's Reflect is similar to X Defense All. They both have Pep Rally, they both give special attack, they both can heal other units, although Blue's team healing cannot be relied upon, but is consistent over the course of a long game. But Alakazam quickly buffs a unit's special attack, which is very, very useful if you want to finish a battle a little bit quicker. It doesn't have... Mega Alakazam is basically a superb Psychic type striker. It has Crit Strike 2 inbuilt on its grid. Generally is like backup damage dealing support on Psychic terrain teams because it gives crit. Like Mega Alakazam, Musharna, and Mew form an extremely powerful core, with each supporting the other through various means, like Mew sync nuking, Alakazam buffing crit and special attack, and Musharna providing the psychic terrain and the very powerful damage between sync cycles with stored power. So Mega Alakazam, super. Everyone knows what it does. It's the best at what it does. And what it does isn't very nice, haha. Very proud of you if you get that reference. Alright, moving on. And then we've almost finished Gen 1. Gyarados. I absolutely love this unit. I mean, like, that should be obvious since I've already made 2 videos featuring it. But it's one of my favorite Pokemon. But okay, no one cares about that. Let's look at it objectively. Hyper Beam does a crap ton of damage. That's basically what it boils down to. Gyarados does obscene amounts of single target damage. He is unfortunately a mixed striker, and which means that his sync is physical, his bounce is physical, but his main attacking move is special. So you need to be a little bit careful about who you use to pair him up, since he's very much not self-sufficient, and definitely needs crit support, and he needs a unit to maximize his defensive stat that you're going for. Generally, you want both. His highest potential is in Rain, and that requires Pelipper. And Pelipper does give him flying type team skills, which raises his bulk and offensive options a tad, but other than that, doesn't really offer too much to Gyarados. Like, my favorite Gyarados Pelipper teammate is Signature Blue, since he raises special attack and special attack slowly while also raising crit, which really leads to a very, very high damage dealing flying type team. Sabrina is another option, but Sabrina does mean that you're not maximizing Gyarados' attack, which means that his Sync Nuke is dealing quite a bit less damage than you'd want. He does have the Sync Nuke power up in Shower Power, which gives him a 50% boost to his Sync move in Rain. But he just does superb flying type damage, superb neutral damage, having Power Flex 5 while mainly spamming a 4-gauge move is a superb trait to have. Raging Rain 3, or is it Raging Rain 2? I think it's Raging Rain 3 actually. Is Gyarados. It is Raging Rain 2, so that's another 20% damage output on top of Power Flux 5. And then in addition to that, you have Paralysis Synergy 1, which is only 10%, but when you think about the fact that it's 10% of a 245 base power move, that adds up to quite a significant increase of base power. And Bounce, Hostile Environment, can help you get that paralysis, especially with the Hostile Environment rates being buffed, as was discovered recently. And on top of that, Bounce has a moderate chance of leaving the target paralyzed, so it's not like a small or insignificant chance to leave the target paralyzed. He can get his paralysis on the opponent quite reliably by himself. Oops, sorry, that was not. Anyway, okay. Then moving on to a unit that is extremely similar to Gyarados, we have Dragonite, which is clearly also an A tier. These two units are so similar. I do think Gyarados is objectively better than Dragonite due to his multipliers, whereas Dragonite doesn't have any. But just these units, they're just like Gyarados has a better trainer move. Gyarados has multipliers. Gyarados has bounce. Dragon Claw is kind of like a dead unit, a dead move on Dragonite. His trainer move is also, for all intents and purposes, a dead move, but when you only need to Hyper Beam Dragon types, when you only need to Hyper Beam and deal massive Dragon type damage, that's what I was trying to say. Dragonite is the one to go to. Like, he doesn't have any multipliers, but the sheer stats and base power of the move of his kit leaves him to outdamage plenty of units that do rely on multipliers. So his grid is but he does have that reliable. He refreshes potions as reliably as Skyla does, which I think is a little bit underrated. He's a very nice support and offensive option, but you don't really want to be sync nuking with Dragonite, since Sabrina is his best partner, since she raises Hyper Beam's accuracy and maximizes his special attack. Yeah, he's once again not entirely self-sufficient, but Dragonite does loads of damage, does it quickly, finishes fights quickly, but doesn't benefit from terrain or weather, and has too many issues with his actual kit to be considered any higher than A tier. Alright, moving on, we have Mew. And Mew I am also putting in A tier. It's so... Mew can do so many things, but it's a great evasion tank. But what it really excels at is the fact that it is an obscenely powerful Psychic type sync nuke. It doesn't have EX unlocked yet. Once EX is unlocked, I would heavily consider putting Mew into S tier. But it doesn't have it yet. But that doesn't even really matter, since it doesn't have an... I think it's like the only tech type that doesn't have an innate sync move boost in its sync move itself, but that doesn't really matter, since it's got two separate nodes on its grid, both Inertia and Blind Spot, in order to reach its maximum potential. It can boost its speed and evasion perfectly fine by itself, but if you want, you can also pair it with a unit like Ribombee to maximize, since Ribombee gives it crit. But when I was talking about Alakazam, I was talking about the best Mew team anyway, which was Musharna, Mew, and Alakazam, because the way they each support each other is just phenomenal. Mew is the sync nuke of the team. Alakazam and Musharna are the units that give support to the team with crit and psychic terrain, but while also doing superb damage themselves. But yeah, in addition to that, Mew offers, if you don't want to use a psychic type Sync Nuke, has loads of other passives, like Super Duper Effective and the Oak's Research, which gives it access to Fire Blast, Thunder, and Blizzard. So it's a really nice option as a really nice damaging option for those types, especially since Fire Blast can be boosted by Sun, and Mew also has Weather Surge, and Thunder can be boosted by Electric Terrain or Rain, so it doesn't miss, and Blizzard can be boosted by Hail, so that it never misses as well. So this is another really nice unit to pair alongside Alolan Sandslash. However, a weakness of pairing Mew with Alolan Sandslash is that in order to actually get access to Blizzard, Mew has to Sync Nuke, and that means that Alolan Sandslash isn't Sync Nuking, so that severely delays the amount of time that a Mew plus Sandslash team can get rolling, but it is still really good. Clearly A tier. Defenses are brilliant. Offensive stats are a little bit lacking, but yeah, doesn't really matter when you've got as many multipliers as Mew does. Alright, Mewtwo. I am putting Mewtwo in C tier, and here's why. We recently were able to bring him up to level 130 with the Giovanni event, and Mewtwo has it's a legendary unit that reaches 500 special attack when fully maxed out, which is really nothing to scoff at, but it also is a unit that benefits from psychic terrain, and units that benefit from terrain or weather are inevitably going to have a leg up on units that can't. But yeah, you just like Mewtwo is a very simple unit. You just pair him with something that buffs special attack, something that gives psychic terrain. Okay, there's only one thing that gives psychic terrain, which is Misharna. But then once you do that, it's ready to roll. It faces quite a bit of competition from Reuniclus. Both are very similar damage dealing psychic types, but the fact that Mew can buff his own crit is quite nice. And not Mewtwo. That Mewtwo can buff his own crit is very nice, and yeah, he's easy on the gauges, he's very fast, he's hits like a truck, but he is quite frail, so keep that in mind. But very oh yeah, and he also obviously has Shadow Ball if you need a ghost type attacker, which are few and far between in this game, honestly. And he is clearly the worst ghost type attacker, but if you need a unit to fulfill that role, Mewtwo can do it too. Alright, so Kanto is done. I am going to take a short break and be back as soon as I can. Alright guys, I am now back, and I have just realized that I have been rambling on for over an hour and we've only covered the Kanto units. So I will have decided that I'm going to be splitting this video up into a couple of parts because I had no idea I was so rambly and lost in thought. I might be going into a little bit too much detail for each of these units, but yeah, I'll be ending this video now and reprising it with another one because I do not want like a 4-hour upload. Alright, see ya!